What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a good day so far. Welcome to another episode of Fowler and Friends. We got a solo episode here for you. It's been a little bit since I've been able to do one of these, and I'm actually pretty freaking stoked about it because I've got a lot to talk about with everyone. This one has been a long time coming for a lot of reasons. Many of you know that back in March of this year, 2025, I competed in the Arnold Classic Pump and Run. I did well. I got second place out of 800 whatever people. And, I trained for 3 months during this program. I was able to shave, Jiminy Christmas, 2.5 minutes off my 5K time during this plan, while also build my strength up to where I could hit my body weight for 30 reps in the bench press. And that was awesome. And the guy who beat me was actually in his 40s, which is incredible. And he was 20 seconds faster. And when you are in your 40s, you only have to bench press 90% of your body weight. But regardless, he was still 20 full seconds faster. And so only reason I'm sharing all this information, which I've talked about in a handful of other pods, is because since I started training for that, I knew that I was going to be making an ebook that was based off of my training program that I use for the pump and run. And so really one of my primary reasons for partaking in the pump and run was to produce this ebook and to showcase my training ability, and also that what I know yields results, right? And so it was really just a field test to demonstrate my ability on myself, and then repackage it and reformat it so it's slightly more consumable for someone of a more general fitness level, or better yet, someone who's looking for slightly more well-rounded approach, as opposed to just getting better at bench pressing while also simultaneously getting better at the 5K. And so I started working on that while I was in the pump and run. And if you can see my shirt right now, if you're listening, it says Fowler-Fit.com. That's my website. I've had this website since July of 2020, so it's been 5 years. And, I know the show is called Fowler and Friends, but when I initially started my journey, sort of dipping just the smallest part of my toe into, being an entrepreneur, I actually started training friends back in 2014. So I was not a certified personal trainer. I was just a former cross-country athlete who had above average muscle mass, partially due to work ethic, partially due to genetics, for someone of my height and size, height and weight. And the summer going into 2014, I'd actually been sick with mono spring of 2014, and coming out of mono, I was very weak, which is super fair and obvious. And I remember getting back into the gym and just thinking, oh my gosh, I will never again be this weak if I can help it. Obviously, if the universe deals me some sort of hand, then, whatever, play the cards that you're dealt. But I was very determined. And so I was working out at least 5 days a week, lifting weights for an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, and eating as much as I could. And I was also training once a week or twice a week with one of my friends who was prepping for their freshman year of college cross-country season. And I probably put on 5 pounds, which might not sound like a lot, but I did it in 4 months, which is more or less about as much muscle as you can put on in 4 months naturally. And so that was a success. And people who I hadn't seen since the end of my freshman year of college, who then saw me my beginning of my sophomore year and end of summer, fall 2014, were like, oh my gosh, what did you do? That sort of thing. And I also met some new friends. And so I started training people in 2014. And after not knowing what to do while I was in college, I bounced the idea around of being a personal trainer, but stayed consistent with my lifting and my running, and continued to build that passion for health and wellness that I've always had. And, after graduating and working a job and in a hotel that I absolutely hated, I finally had the gumption to enroll in a personal training certification through NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, where I acquired my personal training certification in spring of 2019. And so that's when I officially became certified after having trained friends on and off for a few years. Nothing serious, but, and they would see results, which was great. And so finally I was certified. I wasn't working in the field. I was actually in hospitality at the time, working for my bro, Eric, over at Eric Butler. And, I had secured a number of jobs pre-COVID. One was as a personal trainer at the YMCA here in Grove City, Ohio. The other was working the front desk at the fitness center at the apartment complex that I lived at. And the other was as a boxing coach at Title Boxing, which I had no boxing experience. I wrestled as a kid, but no boxing experience. And then lost all those jobs before I worked one shift at the YMCA. And that was the night that we got the news that we were going to close gyms for COVID. And so my first day at YMCA was also my last day. They did buy us pizza though. And so lost all those jobs. And so my first true clients as a personal trainer, as a certified personal trainer, were in home. I was able to secure some clientele and visit them in home while the gyms were closed, and started building my first professional experience that way. There was also a gym called Mesh Fit Club, Mesh Fitness. I can't remember, Mesh Fit Club in Bridge Park, Dublin, which is an awesome gym. And at the time it was co-owned by a guy named Rocky Matolo, who I still reach out to, from time to time. It's not like we're talking all the time, but he was a very helpful mentor and really was able to articulate to me some strategies that would be useful for acquiring clients, maybe demonstrating a bit of a business model for me. And that was also where I got my first group fitness experience. And so I taught a barbell pump class and I taught a HIIT class there to help work off the overhead. Because at Mesh, you could set your own prices and keep all your money, but you had to pay an overhead there. And so really a good deal if you have a lot of clients. Not the best move if it's summer of 2020 and it's barely post-COVID / in the middle of COVID and you don't have a client base, especially none that work at Bridge Park. So in my head, I thought, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. And I could not, in fact, make it then, but that was when I built my first website. So that was that summer, Fowler-Fit.com. And the name Fowler-Fit was actually originated in the summer of 2019, the year before, when I was living with my bro, Sean. And, he has such an entrepreneurial mind and is such a learner, an avid learner and go-getter, that he really inspired me. And so the concept for Fowler-Fit was born summer of 2019, but really didn't start executing until COVID and then summer of 2020. And I started a blog at the time. I think I took all the blog posts down. I have them saved personally. But they were just sort of like tracking my fitness progress / my thought process with regards to where I was at in my development as a practicer of discipline. And, they're not super cringe. They're just like kind of basic. That was like when I really got into Jocko Willink at the time. So it's sort of just like regurgitated Jocko isms, which is not a bad thing at all. But yeah, so that was my first sort of foray into also getting to know myself. One, as a bit of a writer, not that I am one, but I was writing, and also just how I would articulate myself online. I had social media for a while, but it was mostly just like to be funny or, Instagram posting pictures. That was my first time like putting myself out there in a media sense, was with my blog. In September of 2020, a few months later, I got my nutrition coach certification, also through NASM, which I enjoyed a lot more I enjoyed learning a lot more about that compared to the personal training stuff. Again, human movement is awesome. Human anatomy is awesome. I really dig all of that stuff, but the biochemistry behind nutrition is much more interesting to me, and just how it's absorbed, how it's used, how it's broken down. And then, you know, if you eat some protein, it's just so cool that you eat muscle basically, and then it's broken down and rebuilt as your muscle. And so just all the different pathways that nutrition can take, I was really interested in. And due to my group fitness experience that I acquired at Mesh, I was able to get a job at Orange Theory Fitness as a coach. And that was a big grow up moment for me. I was 25 at the time, and I had hardcore imposter syndrome. So, like I said, I had only been certified as a personal trainer since summer 2019. So I'd only had a year of professional experience. Now, I had trained friends on and off since 2014. I'd also built my body up to I'd say a fairly respectable degree, and was confident in my ability to do that with others, and those who I had trained were also seeing results. But I felt very much like an imposter. I didn't have that much formal experience, and Orange Theory at the time was a super, and it still is, but at the time, Orange Theory was known for being super competitive. They were the name in boutique fitness at the time, and it was very competitive to get in as a coach. Pre-COVID classes were full, talking like 36 people to a class, and they were banging them out, like very small amount of time between classes. They were lit, they were hardcore, they were fun, and the coaches who taught them were peak, and the energy was real. And so post, kind of as things were opening back up during COVID, they were rebuilding member base. And they also lost some coaches who, everything closed down. So people had to scramble for jobs, and they lost some coaches and had to bring some newbies in. And I was one of those newbies who on paper looked a little green around the gills, but, one of my coworkers who ended up being a mentor, I eventually ended up being her boss, but it was a huge mentor for me at the time. And one of the reasons I got the job, saw my resume, saw that I did a track club at OU, and was like, hey, this guy might actually be a sleeper. And, that was kind of how I got my shot there. And I was able to really grow and take on a lot of classes. And, one of my philosophies with regards to taking on subbing for classes was each class is practice for the next one. And that was sort of my mindset. And, one of the things that is pretty common in the group fitness world is you have people who are sub hungry, who just want to sub and make that money. And they end up getting burnt out quick. Well, the nice thing about being a 25-year-old dude is that that's a challenge. At least that's how I took it. And I was like, oh, bet. There's no way that I'll be burning out. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to burn out. And so I would just sub like crazy. It really helped with my confidence. Eventually you start developing a following. Eventually people start thinking you're their favorite coach. And I was also still personal training on the side, and, really building confidence with that in a professional sense. Again, I'd been training people for a long time, so I knew what I was doing would get people results. But, when I got my personal training certification, I realized how much I didn't know. And that was really unfortunate at first. I was very confident before getting my certification, and then I got it, and I was like, oh my God, there's so much more to learn, which is a good thing. And there is, and you can pursue fitness your entire life and learn things your entire life. And there's so many disciplines to throw yourself at that you can't master it all. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. But, that really lit a fire under my butt as well. I was just hungry for experience. I was watching YouTube videos all the time of not just people working out, but, which exercises were best for which muscle groups, desirable sets and reps for muscle groups, and then creators debating and all that. So just got really, really deep into the community. And in September of 21, my wife and I moved to North Carolina, and I was able to start making workout plans remotely for folks. And that was really awesome because it forced me to think about programming a little bit differently because I wasn't going to be there. So, what's the best way to help people stay accountable? What kind of notes do I leave to ensure that things are going to be done correctly? What exercises maybe do I not put in because I would just rather be there for them? And that's also going to vary from client to client. And so, really having to take a nuanced approach and evaluate everyone as an individual to think about what would work for them if I'm not there. And so I've been doing that since fall of 2021, which, golly, I mean, we're coming up on 4 years ago. It's crazy. But anyways, so that was really huge. And then, becoming head coach at the Chapel Hill Metalmont studio in December of 21, where I actually started evaluating coaches, both younger than me and older than me. And, that really kicked all the imposter syndrome out of me because I had to level up to the point where I knew I was a top 10% coach. I was in the 90th percentile. I needed to be that and then some to ensure that I had the credibility to evaluate. And so, if someone takes your class and it sucks, whether energy level or you're technically not proficient or whatever, or you can't check your BS at the door, then people aren't going to take your feedback seriously. And so that was something I really focused on while I was there, was just becoming an elite coach so I could provide elite feedback regardless of whether you had more experience than me or less. My coaching was going to be right up there with yours, if not better. And it typically was. And that's something I've struggled with up until fairly recently, is acknowledging reality with regards to my ability. And I think modesty is important. And I think humility and being humble is important. And those are things that I try and practice. But I think, and this is true for everyone, if you are good at something and you downplay it, you do yourself and those around you a disservice, because you and them all stand to benefit from your ability. So it's not just about you. And that's something that took a while for me to realize, was that I was actually being selfish by being overly modest, because I could be helping more people. And so that was something, and still to a certain extent is something that I am working on. Again, it's not about being overly confident, cocky. It's about being appropriately confident and recognizing objective reality and where you stand compared to where you were and others in your industry of both similar experience, lesser experience, and more experience. I mean, some people just learn quicker than others. And I'm not saying that I was one of those people. I think I worked really hard. I don't know if I actually learned any quicker. But all that to say is big skill set level up then. And then, we were thinking about moving back to Columbus, Ohio. And, I wasn't sure, I told Sean when I started working for Air Butler, like, for my buddy Eric, back in 2019, that I was never going to work for anyone but myself again. I was working for Eric, but I was a contractor at the time. I was like, oh, dude, I'm done working. I'm done working for the man. I've escaped. I'm never doing it again. I'm only ever working for myself. Well, that obviously didn't happen. But I think there's something endearing about the mindset at the time, and the entrepreneurial spark was indeed ignited that summer of 2019, and in 2023, spring 2023, I was like, okay, how are we gonna? I need to level up from Orange Theory. I think I need to go out there and be my own business. And I wrote a full business case for being a trainer on my own, what I offered, how I would do pricing, all of that. I mean, big business case. ChatGPT was also like really picking up steam. I can't believe that was 2 years ago. We've been using that for 2+ years already, which is nuts. And so I was using chat to help me out, and I brought it to a buddy of mine who evaluates business cases as his job. He does it in the corporate world though. And he was like, yeah, this is great, but I mean, what is this? What about you is different from any other coach? And he's like, I'm not saying that you wouldn't get me results, but there are plenty of established coaches, if I wanted to go on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, who could give me an equal caliber. And that's true, you know. There are a lot of trainers who are shysters, who are charlatans, who don't really know as much as they say they do. But, you know, there also are a lot of people on Instagram who have gained a solid following who can give you, you know, next level elite results. Also, I can't remember the name of the app at the time, and that's going to frustrate me, but there is an app, and I'm sure there's more than one now, where you just go on and you tell it what you want, and it provides that exact workout plan for you. So there are already AI powered workout apps. You can go to, you know, Renaissance Periodization, which is another super well known app, and they can give you an incredible split for you to follow, and that will yield results, and it will do nutrition tracking and all that stuff. And so it really made me question, okay, like with the rise of AI and with the mostly saturated market of online fitness coaches, is this really the move for me right now? And it seemed not. And we were also expecting the kid. And so maybe it wasn't the best time to try and start a business with you know, and at the time I only had very limited clientele. So, because I was making them remotely and some of those people were in other states. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I was like, dang, okay, maybe it's not the time. And that was also, which is funny though, because around the same time is when I was also inspired to start the podcast. And it was that summer of 2023, after we moved back to Ohio, that I bought some of the equipment and started playing around with demos, and you know, here we are, whatever episode this is, 30 something. So, you know, that all worked out. But, you know, I've been really trying to figure out this whole fitness thing for a while, and, you know, went back to Orange Theory, you know, became head coach of the Westerville studio. And, you know, that was all that. But, you know, if I really wanted to stand out, then it had to be unapologetically me. I mean, that's what people want right now. In the age of AI, they want authenticity, they want something that's real. And that is part of the reason, you know, I've explained in other podcasts why I did the pump and run, but that's part of the reason why I wanted to do the pump and run. And, you know, I knew we were trying to buy a house, and then our kid was born 2 weeks after we bought a house. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to train for the pump and run for 2024, but, you know, things were lining up, and I knew that, you know, the pump and run was personal to me also because my dad had done it a couple of times growing up. So it's something that has always been on my radar. I ran cross country, and like I said, for someone who's 5'7", I am reasonably well muscled. And I've got short arms and a broad chest, which makes me, you know, a good candidate to be good at bench press, and which I definitely am pretty solid. Again, all for someone my size. You know, my height and weight. You know, it's all relative. But anyway, so this pump and run was always part, or since I conceived of doing it, more or less was always part of my plan to put some form of Fowler-Fit out there. Again, it's existed. I've had the website. I've been making workout plans remotely since 2021. I've been training clients in person since 2014, but legitimately since 2019, or I guess 2020. But it was now time to really put an authentic version of myself out there. And so that the pump and run was the perfect vessel for doing that. And what I did before I started the pump and run training was I sort of built a small endurance base beforehand. It wasn't great, and in fact, come fall, I'm gonna do a better job of that. But come fall of this year, that is. But I built a small base, and then I built a training blueprint for myself called Jake's Pump and Run Training Boot Camp. It was 12 weeks long. I lifted 3 times a week with a bench focus. And so I was benching 3 times a week, which is kind of crazy. And then I was also running 5 times a week. I was doing intervals, threshold runs, long runs, repeats for speed work. And I documented every detail, volume, pace, phases, all of it. I made a PowerPoint, and that was it was exclusively for myself. And it was so that when I went and looked back at, I could see what worked and what didn't, so that when I eventually made this ebook, I could trim all the fat off of it. And also I could consider how I had to adapt. I was a dad at the time. I was applying for jobs at the time. I had a job. I had a podcast. I made workout plans. I do 20 million things, and just like, so many people do. And so it was just, I had to make sure that it was something that could adapt to real life. And so, as I started working, things immediately start not going to plan, but for the most part, things also do sort of go to plan. And what I mean when things don't go to plan is weather happens, life happens, kid needs something, wife sick, whatever, you need to cover something at work, stuff happens. And so it was really helpful to track that, so I could, in the ebook, articulate how to adapt and give yourself some grace. And so one of the things that was also critical is about 2 or 3 weeks in, I had a conversation with Tina Houston. She is, I think it's 3-time female pump and run winner. And I think she also got in the top 10 one year. So not only was she the female victor, but she also got top 10 overall. It might have been top 5. I can't remember. I should have looked that up beforehand. But anyways, she gave me some tidbits, and that really inspired me to dial up my training a little bit. Okay, you had 2 or 3 weeks to sort of adjust to the regiment, but now it's time to kick it up. And so it made me realize that I need to train smarter, not just harder. You still need to train hard. In fact, the whole work smarter, not harder is only works if you're competing or working with dumb people. But if you're working with people who work hard, then you're going to need to work smart and hard. And so that's sort of the position that I was in, especially because it was the dead of winter. And so couldn't also take too many risks with the snow and the ice. And, I had to shift my structure to make sure it was sustainable, and that it was well balanced as balanced as it could be, again, giving all the other things that I had going on in my life. And, one of the things, some of the things I had to deal with were ice on the track and having to adapt to that, whether I would drive somewhere or just say, screw it, I'm going to do sprints on the side that's least icy and just get something in. Sleep wasn't as good as it could be. June was doing a pretty good job of sleeping through the night, but sometimes she would wake up 2 days a week. I was waking up at 3:45 in the morning. And so just having to combat, low energy, inconsistent sleep. I tried my best to go to bed at the same time as much as I could. And, I tracked my calorie burn daily, so I had a good idea of what I was burning and was able to maintain more or less appropriate nutrition without tracking, which I would not recommend. But, I'm pretty locked in with that stuff, so I can eyeball it better than the average person. And so, I took all the lessons from my prep and built what is called the Final Hybrid Training Program Volume 1, or Fowler-Fit Hybrid Training Program Volume 1. I just called it Final in my saved docs. But yeah, the Fowler-Fit Hybrid Training Program Volume 1, hopefully one of many. But I started working on this thing as I was training. And so I, started doing the outline, the layout, and yeah, it's over 100 pages long. And that's only because the PDF comes with a paper tracker if you want to. There's also an Excel tracker. So best of both worlds. I know most people do stuff on their phone, and so you can open it in sheets on your phone or something. But believe it or not, I actually see a lot of people with pen and paper at the gym marking down. I think there's something about the tactileness of writing things down. But anyways, it's over 100 pages long. The first 20 pages sort of give the why, they define things, they list the benefits, they list how to adapt the program if you need to, and that sort of thing. And so it really is just an amazing program, if I may say so, because I did it and it worked, and then I made it better for all of you. And instead of making it so much of a bench focus, I made it a power lift focus. So you bench, you squat, you deadlift, and then of course there's the cardio component, the running. And so it is for hybrid athletes or people who want to become a hybrid athlete. And hybrid is just such a funny word because, you know, if you listen to me talk with, you know, my buddy Dan Hopwood on this show, he's done a couple episodes, or recently, if you saw the episode with Ben Paul, talk about hybrid athletes, it just means people who train in multiple modalities, somewhat similar to CrossFit, but CrossFit is like a specific brand of something. Whereas like hybrid training, it's like, yeah, I like to lift weights and I like to go on runs. And sometimes I do it in the same day and sometimes I do it on different days. And that's been me for, I don't know, decade and a half. I mean, I'm 30 now. It's been me for, over 15 years. Yeah. So a decade and a half plus. And yeah, so I mean, it's really for folks who are lifters who want conditioning, runners who want power, busy people who need a clear path, who don't want to think about what they're doing, but just want to get better overall. It really stands out because it's been tested by me and it works. It's flexible and intentional at the same time. And it's not AI generated or copy and pasted. You know, I read this book called The Running Formula and took what I learned from that book and my experience in cross country to design the program as far as the endurance side goes. And then I also took what I know as a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and then corrective exercise specialist, which I got also from NASM in spring of 2024. So, 3 times certified, 2 times through NASM, once through Orange Theory, and, also experience tested as well. And so, this is something that works, and it's something that I am, overall super duper proud of. And it's something that is for sure going to give you results. And actually, I should just share my screen because that would make a lot more sense in the moment. And so, this is what it looks like on Google Doc. That's me finishing at the finish line here. So, got disclaimer, all that stuff, table of contents, intro. It talks about me, the Fowler-Fit Hybrid Training philosophy, who it's for, goals and outcomes, all that stuff. It's really got it all, folks. I hold your hand through the entire process, talk about what you're going to gain, how to use the book, testing you should do for yourself beforehand. So, 5K testing, strength testing, and you don't even have to do 1 rep max testing. So if doing a 1 rep max scares you, which if you've never done one, it should scare you a little bit because you can really hurt yourself. There are other ways to test, and we talk about that in here. And it talks about how to follow the program and how to adapt it to your needs. And it provides definitions for everything from, the endurance components, the cardio components, strength and lifting terms, hybrid training terms, all these things. And then it also gives options for every single exercise in here. There are options for you to make substitutions, whether it's due to injury or equipment availability or whatever. There's me with the balls deep, boys, shout out. And then the rest of the program, it's just a day-by-day breakdown. And when you download this, you also get like I said, an Excel tracker to go with it. So you can track your progress week after week. And yeah, it's super duper swag, and it's available for everyone. And so, that's sort of what I want to spend the rest of the time talking about is, how not now this is available. This is available for people to go and get on my Linktree. And so I can't remember what I priced it at. I think it's $49. Yeah, $49. Um, and it's totally worth every single penny. You get to keep it for life. You get the tracker for life. You get the program for life. And the nice thing is, it's like, this is something that you can revisit. So I don't train this way, how this program is. I don't train this way year round, but I'm excited to pick it up again and give it another go and see what sort of adaptations my body has gone through in the past year. What sort of gains have I made that contribute, and what sort of gains have I made that will hinder? Because you can't have it all, folks. Hybrid training is awesome, but there's a trade-off in all things. And so, if your goal is to be as strong as humanly possible, and you want to be a full-time power lifter, then this isn't for you, and vice versa. If you're trying to be an ultra marathon runner, like, you really don't need to be doing this hybrid training program. And so for the specialists out there, do your thing, specialize, do what you love. But for the generalists, for the hybrid athletes out there, dude, if you want to run, if you want to lift, and you want to get better at both, I've got you. So, that this is like I said, one of the reasons I went through my sort of journey as a fitness professional at the beginning was just to, take you on that sort of narrative journey, and also kind of show you that this ebook that I have made is the sum total of my experience at this time. And I've got some more experience since starting it and doing all that. And so, and I've got some other ideas for other volumes going forward, and I've got a body weight program that I'm going to put out here soon. But at the end of the day, this is just something that is truly my life's work up to this point, and is something that does work. It's a tried and true method, and I really hope that folks give it a shot. One, so I can collect some feedback, but two, because I actually really want folks to make the most out of their lives, and you can have more experiences when you have a body that is conditioned and strong and able to navigate different sort of environments, and you're able to experience more freedom that way. You'll feel better, you'll look better, and it will all around just make you better, or make you mentally tougher. And so, and all that's also in the ebook. I make sure to articulate that. So, when considering what to do next, you should certainly consider purchasing my ebook. And one of the other things that was cool about going through this entire journey, from training to competing to building the program throughout to building and finishing the program after, was just learning how to manage myself. Oh my gosh. I really learned the value of simplicity and rest when I was first building the program, like while I was training for the pump and run. Initially, I was thinking about how many variations I could do of it. It's like, oh, well, if this happens, then sort of like a choose your own adventure when you're reading a book. And it's like, if this is your choice, go to page 57. If this is your choice, go to page 200. If you've ever read one of those, it was going to be sort of more like that, to account for everyone. But when you make something for everyone, you really make something for no one, because it's just so overly general. And it was also going to be so much work to run through all those different variations. I mean, the thing is like pretty focused, and it's already like 100 pages, most of it being the tracking stuff, but still, it's still pretty grossly huge. And so, simplifying and staying focused on one thing. What can I make that is truly what I have done? And that also means that you've made something that isn't for everyone, and that's okay. I don't know how to make something that is for everyone. I know how to make a workout plan specific to you, but I can't make a workout plan for everyone. I can make a workout plan for people who want to be hybrid athletes. That is definitely something I can do. Now, and you can make a plan for beginners. You can make a plan for a beginning intermediate to intermediate, but those are all different groups of people. And so, really figuring out how to specify. I grew a lot of empathy for folks who are juggling fatigue and inconsistency, just because, excuse me, I had the most that I'd ever had going on in my life as well. And, stuff happens and you have to give yourself grace. Life will give you days off. So if something happens, like, oh my God, XYZ happened and I actually couldn't train because some sort of emergency came up, like, that's okay. You prioritized and then you executed. That other thing was a higher priority than your training. And so you had to, you had to take it out. Now, that doesn't mean you get to make excuses when things come up. And, that's something I've talked about in the last solo show I did, was recognizing what is urgent versus important. Something can be important, but doesn't have to be done now. And that was something I struggled with, still do, not as much, but struggled with. And so, the plan needed to be something that adapted to real life and still deliver results. And that's what I did for myself. And that's what I did for you guys. And so, I grew a lot during this time. Actually, my job was a scam. I got a new job in February, ended up being a scam. And so during the month of April, I was basically between jobs, and I had 2 weeks to really finalize the ebook for the hybrid training program, volume 1. But I was also doing the podcast. I was also doing, so figuring out how to manage all the things and not try and do 10 things at once. So it's like, oh, I'm working on this and I'm working on this and I'm working on this. But instead, if you're going to sit down for 4 hours, spend 4 hours, let's say you have 4 hours, spend 3 hours doing the thing. And if you have to do other things, like they're non-negotiable, they need to get done, but they're not the main thing, then just give yourself an hour, knock out the quick things in the hour, and then lock in for 3 hours and do the thing you're supposed to do. Don't jump from podcast to Fowler-Fit ebook to this, to that. And that's what I was doing. And so I got better at locking in and dialing in over the course of those 2 weeks, which was, incredible. It's tough to be your own boss, to be a content creator and a project manager all at the same time. And again, like, this is not a woe is me. I'm just telling you, in real life, it was tough. But these are all things that I chose to do, and I'm incredibly grateful for my choices. I basically just do what I want, even though some of the things that I choose to do are annoying in the short term. They're super beneficial in the long term, and that's something that I should be grateful for. I mean, everything that I do is what I want to be doing now. I still have to go to work, and I'm not saying my job is the best thing that's ever happened to me, but like, I chose to do it. And so, I'm fortunate enough to be in a place right now where, at the very least, I chose where I want to be. And, one of the things that was cool is I had built the outline for this program while I was training. And so I had that going for me. And I'm confident that the next time I make a program, it'll be done much quicker, because again, this thing finished in March and I started working on it like December, January. So, I mean, anywhere from like 7 to, what is it? July, August? It's end of July. So anywhere from like, 4 to 7 months I've been working on this thing. And so I'm excited for the next one, because I know I'm going to knock it out, in an even more efficient manner. One of the other things I want to talk about before I wrap up here is just the podcast as a whole. I had a revelation while talking with my buddy Peyton a couple episodes ago. And, at the formation, at the genesis of this podcast, I knew right away that I wanted it to be I wanted it to be a positive upward aiming experience for all who came on there. And so like I was hoping to flesh out ideas. And so that way when people walked away from the show, they were like, yeah, okay, I have a bit of a better understanding of myself and where I'm going. And maybe they already had that, but there's also utility in repeating it and fleshing it out even more. And hopefully that's the experience that people have when they come on. And so I knew that was going to be the case from the beginning, but as I was talking with Peyton, one, I was having a lot of fun, which is good. I've been having a lot more fun doing this. I was really looking forward to doing this one, even though I don't have a guest, and I much prefer it when there's a guest. But I was, even excited to do this, especially after a day at work. Oh my gosh, I was thinking at work today, I cannot wait to be here. And here I am. So we're having a good time. But when I was talking with Peyton and he was sort of asking me about the pod, we had been texting before. He was like, so what's the deal? And I was like, well, we kind of want to build a community of people who are in the process of getting where they want to be and have it be super positive. And I think it started to click with me a little bit more. Oftentimes, whether you like to read or not, if you read a book, whether it's biography or some tech bro wrote a book about crypto or their success in this industry or whatever, there's usually a page or a paragraph or maybe a chapter about, here's where I started and here's where I ended. And then the rest of the book is about their success and how they managed that and that sort of thing. But I think what's missing right now, and what I think the show has been, and what I think it's going to continue to be, at least for the foreseeable future, is just it's for folks who are in that paragraph, the page, the chapter where they're getting where they want to go and they're making progress, but there's setbacks and they're not quite there. And I think that's super fun and super relatable. And it makes me more excited to do more of these because I want to follow, the guests that we've had on and the guests that are going to be on. And I want them to succeed. I want them to get to the part where it's the rest of the book and it's just about, um, the success and or the business and how the business functions and that sort of thing. You listen to insert podcast and the person is telling you about what they're doing now, or you listen to, someone who's talking about their routine, who's already super successful and made all their money. Oh, well, this is how I wake up and this is my morning routine. And, it's non-negotiable that I do X, Y, Z, but, I think it's super interesting to have the people who don't have any of that and who are somewhat limited by circumstance and just are like, yeah, I've got to manage all these things and, still chase my dreams on the side. And, it sucks and I'm tired and sometimes I wake up and I think this is never going to happen, da, 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 da. And then an hour later, I'm like, nah, we're good. We got it. And then 5 hours later, it's like, oh my gosh, we got so much to do. And now this bullshit's in here. And where it's just like up and down, up and down, up and down. That's the real story right there. And I feel like, that's kind of what this podcast has started to become is, people who are fucking just grinding it out right now, getting where they want to go. And that's not to say like you have to be part of grind culture or whatever. Like, I think it's really easy for folks to be like, oh, this is, this sort of thing, or oh, this is that sort of thing. It's like, on this podcast, multiple things can be true at the same time. You can like to grind, but also like hanging out with your family or, doing these other things. And, it's just about weighing sacrifice and the trade-off in all things. And so, anyways, basically the revelation I had was the way I started this pod is the reason I started this pod was to build a community. And I think that it's starting to happen. And I think I'm starting to feel the effects of it. And that's really exciting. And, I can't wait to see where it goes. And, it's like I've said it in many episodes. And I'm probably going to keep saying it. It's come up season, and we're gonna do it together, and everyone is welcome. in whatever version come up season is. You don't have to have like some kind of grand ambition. Like my actual ambition with this show now is just to like support the people who come on and the people who listen, and hopefully the people who come on and the people who listen get something about it and are able to positively impact them and move them forward in an upward trajectory trajectory that they see fit, and that helps them find successes as they define it, definitely as they define it. And so this vision is folks come on here and become collaborators, and we create a tide that raises all ships, and we're all aiming to be the best versions of ourselves and enjoying life along the way. And this pod hopefully is becoming more and more authentically me. I think we're getting there. It can be a little hard to put yourself out there, but we're getting there, I think. And the ebook I made is authentically me, just like this pod is, painfully so. And so, looking to the future, we've got ideas, by we I mean me, for other ebooks. I actually have one done for a bodyweight training program, something you can take on the go. So I'll put that out here as soon as I can, and we'll do a strength only version at some point, maybe a more advanced hybrid. This is also an invitation to tell me what you want, or to reach out. If you need a personalized workout plan for yourself, then reach out to me and let me know. I kind of made the argument beforehand that you could just get an AI app and plug in what you want. But I think apps like those are kind of for people that have a little bit more of a background in fitness, so that they can better articulate what they want to the app. Whereas like, maybe you have a general idea of what you want, but you don't actually know what you should be aiming for. And you want to talk to a professional because maybe you could just talk to ChatGPT, but you're not sure if you could give it the right questions, and you're looking for that more personal connection. And so while my main focus isn't necessarily to be like some sort of Instagram trainer, I am taking on clients all the time for remote training. I can't see you in person. I'm sorry. I've got no time. I would eventually like to see you in person. I wouldn't mind being a personal trainer full time. But in the meantime, all I got for you is a personalized workout plan that you will execute remotely. I'm sorry. That's all I can do for you. But if you want it, I'm your guy. So go buy the ebook. You can head to my link tree. It's on the Fowler and Friends Instagram account. It's on my personal Instagram account. So go in the link tree, buy it. Like I said, it's $49. It's over 100 pages, all for you, all tested by me, that yield real results. So, that's all I got for you in that regard. And in less than 1 month, or in less than 3 months, you'll have made a bunch of progress, and it'll be awesome. Just make sure you're supporting the show to the best of your ability. Listen to it in the car. Send your favorite episode to your friends. Ooh, you listen to it on Spotify? Maybe I'm going to watch it on YouTube. Even though there's not that much awesome camera work, Jake is a lot more animated to watch in person. You can watch his tics, see how he kind of just looks about randomly. Can't really seem to focus on anything. No, I'm messing around. Thank you, everyone, for supporting what we've been building over here. It means a whole lot. Go get the ebook. You need it. And keep supporting the show. And I'll catch you on the next one. Later, everyone. Peace out. Oh, wait. Whoa. That was close. If you see my shirt, Fowler-Fit.com, the website is it's so like don't go there and judge me on it. But below that, you see a bending barbell for the listeners. It's Fowler-Fit.com, and you've got a bending barbell, and below that it says 1,000-pound club. So the 1,000-pound club is a club where you add together the different power lifts, so the bench, the squat, and the deadlift. And if those 1 rep max lift total 1,000 pounds, then you are in the 1,000-pound club. And I have never done a 1 rep max for each all in one day. But right now that's what I'm training for. So I'm trying to get in the 1,000-pound club, and I think we're going to get there. I'm actually very confident in my ability to get there. The bench is probably where it needs to be. The squat is actually going way better than I thought it would. Just got to make sure that the deadlift is on point. But yeah. So anyways, now we're actually done. Just wanted to give you that training update. Gonna join the 1,000 Pound Club. I appreciate all y'all. Love all y'all. Keep supporting the show. And if you want to come on, let me know. Otherwise, peace out. What's up, everybody? It's Jake here, Fowler and Friends. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me and all of us over here at Fowler and Friends. So if you could please like, subscribe, comment, do all of that. But definitely subscribe, share the videos with your friends, and keep on supporting the channel. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.